months for Volume 3, Bhaktivedanta Swami decided to try Bombay. He traveled there in July and stayed at the Prem Kutir Dharmashala, a free ashrama, Srila Prabhupada. At Prem Kutir, they received me very nicely. I was going to sell my books. Some of them were criticizing what kind of sannyasi he is making business book selling. Not the authorities said this, but some of them. I was writing my book then also. Then I became a guest for 15 days with a member of Almia family. One of the brothers told me that he wanted to construct a little cottage at his house. You can live here. I will give you a nice cottage. I thought, no, it is not good to be fully dependent patronized by a Vishayi materialist. But I stayed for 15 days and he gave me exclusive use of a typewriter for writing my books. Bhaktivedanta Swami made his rounds of the institutions and booksellers in Bombay. He now had an advertisement showing himself with Prime Minister Shastri, and he also had the Prime Minister's letter and Ministry of Education's purchase order for 50 volumes. Still, he was getting only some small orders. Then he decided to visit Sumati Morarji, head of the Scindia Steamship Company. He had heard from his godbrothers in Bombay that she was known for helping sadhus and had donated to the Bombay Gaudiya Math. He had never met her, but he well remembered by one of her officers to arrange half-fare passage for him to America. Now he wanted her help for printing Srimad Bhagavatam. But his first attempts to arrange a meeting were unsuccessful. Frustrated at being put off by Mrs. Morarji's office, he sat down on the front steps of her office building, determined to catch her attention as she left for the day. The lone sadhu certainly caused some attention as he sat quietly chanting for 5 hours on the steps of the Scindia Steamship Company building. Finally, late that afternoon, Mrs. Morarji emerged in a flurry of business talk with her secretary, Mr. Chokshi. Upon seeing Bhaktivedanta Swami, she stopped. Who is this gentleman sitting here? She asked Mr. Chokshi. He's been here for 5 hours, the secretary said. All right, I'll come, she said and walked up to where Bhaktivedanta Swami. He smiled and stood, offering namaskaras with his folded palms. Swamiji, what can I do for you? She said. Bhaktivedanta Swami told her briefly of his intentions to print the third volume of his Srimad Bhagavatam. I want you to help me, he said. All right, Mrs. Morarji replied. We can meet tomorrow because it is getting late. Tomorrow you can come and we will discuss. The next day, Bhaktivedanta Swami met with Mrs. Morarji in her office where she looked at the typed published volumes. All right, she said, if you want to print, I will give you the aid. You can get it printed. With Mrs. Morarji's guarantee, Bhaktivedanta Swami was free to return to Vrindavana to finish writing the manuscript. As with the previous volumes, he set a demanding schedule for writing and publishing. The third volume would complete the first canto. Then, with the supply of impressive literature, he would be ready to go to the West. Even with volumes 1 and 2, he was getting a better reception in India. Seen the Vice President and Prime Minister. He had successfully approached a big business magnate of Bombay. 2 minutes of presenting the book, he had received a large donation. The books were powerful preaching. Somebody else would like to read?
Can I read? Can I?
Yes, please.
Okay. Jamastami and Bhaktivedanta Swami was planning a celebration at the Radha Damodara temple. He wanted to invite Vishwanath Das, the governor of Uttar Pradesh to preside over the ceremony honoring Lord Krishna's appearance. Sri Vishwanath had received a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam Volume 1 and had written a review. Also a politician, he was known for his affection and respect for sadhus. He regularly invited recognized sadhus to his home, and once a year he would visit all the important temples in Vrindavan. Bhaktivedanta Swami asked Vrindavana's municipal president Mangala Sharma to visit the governor to the Janmashtami celebration at Radha Damodara temple. The governor readily accepted the invitation. Bhaktivedanta Swami printed a flyer announcing, on the occasion of Janmashtami ceremony at the Samadhi ground of Srila Rupa and Jiva Goswami, Sri Radha Damodara temple, Sibankuj Vrindavan, Gaudiya Kirtan performances in the presence of His Excellency Sri Vishwanath Das, Governor of Uttar Pradesh, and the Chief Guest Sri G.D. Somani of Bombay, Trustee of Sri Raghunathaji Temple, Vrindavan. Dated at Vrindavan, Sunday, the 31st August 1964 at 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. The flyer contains an advertisement for the Srimad Bhagavatam series, to be completed in 60 volumes. Vachanas to be sung by the occasion, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Nitya Kamala, the prayer to the 6 Goswamis of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, were printed in Bengali as a songbook. The program was successful. A large crowd attended the song to Lord Krishna and took prasadam. Bhaktivedanta Swami lectured on a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, being the age of Kali as an ocean of thoughts that had but unsaving quality. The chanting of Hare Krishna. After leading Hare Krishna Kirtana, Bhaktivedanta Swami presented a copy of his second volume of Srimad Bhagavatam to the governor and spoke of his plan to preach all over the world. The day of Janmashtami was Bhaktivedanta Swami's 69th birthday. A few days later, Vishwanath Das requested Swami Maharaj to visit him at his mission in Lucknow. It was a special occasion, and the governor has invited several sadhus and planned a Kirtana program. It had invited a professional musical group who toured Indian performing kirtanas and giving recital. One of the musicians, Yash Kumar Bhattacharya, was very impressed with Bhaktivedanta Swami. Can somebody else take over, please? Rivo. Someone else?
Okay, I can read now. So, we were invited to perform kirtan in the governor's house in Lucknow. We had about 7 or 8 in our group. This was the governor's house, a big home, and I was sitting on a, how do you pronounce that? Dais. I saw the governor, Vishwanath Das, and beside him was a sadhu who was old, but I thought was really strong. When I saw the governor sitting there, I came down from the dais and bowed down. Then I asked which subject he wanted to listen to. He said, "Let's have something about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Then I said, "I'm very glad you selected this." About 1/2 hour we spent on Mahaprabhu's kirtan, and then we had our dinner in the big banquet hall on old silver plates with the governor's symbols on each of them. We sat together, and I was sitting side by side with the same sadhu, and he introduced himself as Bhaktivedanta Swami. We discussed, and then the Swami presented me with a book, Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktivedanta Swami said, "I'm interested to propagate Krishna Nam and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Western countries. I'm trying to take it. If I get, I will go, and I will propagate Mahaprabhu's teachings. And he uttered this from Mahaprabhu. Pritivite achayata nagaradi gram sarvatra pachara hoibe moranam. But I did not think he would actually be able to do it, because he was very simple and poor. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had predicted, one day my name will be known in every town and village in the world. With the manuscript for volume 3 complete and with the money to print it, Bhaktivedanta Swami once again entered the printing world, purchasing paper, correcting proofs, and keeping the printer on schedule so that the book would be finished by January 1965. Thus, by his persistence, he who had almost no money of his own managed to publish his third large hardbound volume within a little more than 2 years. At this rate, with his respect in the scholarly world increasing, he might soon become a... can't really see anymore at the moment. Can it move up a little bit?
Do you want it to be higher?
Please, yeah, green. I can't see past that. Maybe
Sorry.
it's... Okay. He might soon become a recognized figure amongst his countrymen, but he had his vision set on the West. And with the third volume now printed, he felt he was at last prepared. He was 69 and would have to go soon. It had been more than 40 years since Srila Bhaktisanta Sarasvati had first asked a young householder in Calcutta to preach Krishna consciousness in the West. At first it had seemed impossible to Abhay Charan, who had so many responsibilities. That obstacle, however, had long ago been removed, and for more than 10 years he had been free to travel. But he had been penniless and still was, and he had wanted first to publish some volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam to take with him. It had seemed necessary if he were to do something solid. Now, by Krishna's grace, 3 volumes were on hand. Srila Prabhupada, I planned that I must go to America. Generally they go to London, but I did not want to go to London. I was simply thinking, I was scheming, whether I shall go this way, through Tokyo, Japan, or that way. Which way is cheaper? That was my proposal. And I was targeting to New York always. Sometimes I was dreaming that I have. Then Bhaktivedanta Swami met Mr. Agarwal, a mature businessman, and mentioned to him in passing, as he did to almost everyone he met, that he wanted to go to the West. Although Mr. Agarwal had known Bhaktivedanta Swami for only a few minutes, he volunteered to try to get him a sponsor in America. Agarwal had done a number of times. When he met a sadhu who mentioned something about going abroad to teach Hindu culture, he would ask his son Gopal, an engineer in Pennsylvania, to send back a sponsorship form. When Mr. Agarwal volunteered to help in this way, Bhaktivedanta Swami urged him please to do so. Srila Prabhupada, I did not say anything seriously to Mr. Agarwal, but perhaps he took and asked him, well, why don't you ask your son Gopal to sponsor so that I can go there? I want to preach there. But Bhaktivedanta Swami knew he could not simply dream of going to the West. He needed money. In March 1965, he made another visit to Bombay, attempting to sell his books. Again, he started Prem Kutir. But finding customers was difficult. He met Paramananda Bhagwani, a librarian at Jai Hind College, who purchased books for the college library and then escorted Bhaktivedanta Swami to a few likely outlets. Mr. Bhagwani, I took him to the popular book depot at Grant Road to help him in selling books, but they told us they couldn't stock the books because they don't have much sales on religion. Then we went to another shop nearby, and the owner also regretted his inability to sell the books. Then he went to Sadhu Vela near Mahalakshmi temple, and we met the head of the temple there. He, of course, welcomed us. They have a library of their own, and they stock religious books, so we approached them to please keep us. They are a wealthy ashram, and yet he also expressed his inability. Bhaktivedanta Swami returned to Delhi, pursuing the usual avenues of book selling and looking for whatever opportunity might arise. And to his surprise, he was contacted by the Ministry of External Affairs and informed that his no objection certificate for going to the US was ready. Investigated any proceedings for leaving the country, Bhaktivedanta Swami had to inquire from the ministry what happened. They showed him the statutory declaration form signed by Mr. Gopal Agarwal of Butler, Pennsylvania. Mr. Agarwal solemnly declared that he would bear the expenses of Bhaktivedanta Swami during his stay in the US.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada, whatever the correspondence was there between the father and son, I did not know. I said, why don't you ask your son Gopal to sponsor? And now, after 3 or 4 months, the no objection certificate was sent from the Indian consulate in New York to me. He already had sponsored my arrival there for 1 month, and all of a sudden I got the paper. At his father's request, Gopal Agarwal had done as he had done for several other sadhus in America. It was just a formality, something to satisfy his father. Gopal requested a form from the Indian consulate in New York, obtained a statement from his employer certifying his monthly salary, gotten a letter from his bank showing his balance as of April 1965, and had the form notarized. It had been stamped and approved in New York and sent to Delhi. Now Bhaktivedanta Swami had a sponsor, but he still needed a passport and travel fare. The passport was not very difficult to obtain. Krishna Pandit helped. And by June passport, carefully he penned in his address at the Radha Krishna temple in Chipwada and wrote his father's name for Mohan Day. He asked Krishna Pandit also to pay for his going abroad, but Krishna Pandit refused, thinking against Hindu principles for a sadhu to go abroad and also very expensive. With his passport and sponsorship papers, Bhaktivedanta Swami went to Bombay, not to sell books or raise funds for printing. He wanted a ticket for America. Again, he tried approaching Srimati Maraji. He showed his sponsorship papers to her secretary, Mr. Jogsky, who was impressed, and he went to Mrs. Maraji on his behalf. Can you move it up, please? The Swami.
Hare Krishna, can it go up a little bit?
Yeah, it's as high as I can get it.
Oh, really? Because on ours it's really low.
Yeah, we can't see anymore.
Maybe someone else needs to read them because it's just, it could be something.
I think it's because of the internet, the lagging.
Oh, it's lagging. That's what it is. Okay.
It's frozen for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just frozen. Okay.
I guess when we stop it, and somebody else could take over.
It's probably. Is it frozen for everybody?
It's frozen for me as well, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah, it's frozen for us too.
Maybe
Like
so you should share it because the internet is not good.
Will I have to?
it's up now. So somebody else. Gonna pass it on. I don't know.
I can finish it.
You want to finish that paragraph? Sue's going to finish the
I
paragraph.
can't see any further. Oh, the Swami from Vrindavan is back. He told her he has published his book on your donation. He is a sponsor and he wants to go to America. He wants you to send him on a syndicate ship. Mrs. Maraji said, no, Swamiji was too old to go to the United States and expect to accomplish anything. As Mr. Choksky conveyed to him Mrs. Maraji's words, Bhaktivedanta Swami listened disapprovingly. She wanted him to stay in India and complete the Srimad Bhagavatam. Why go to the States? Finish the job here. Somebody else want to read?
Yeah, I will go. But Bhaktivedanta Swami was fixed on going. He told Mr. Choksey that He should convince Mrs. Murarji. He coached Mr. Choksi on what he should say. I find this gentleman very inspired to go to the States and to the people there. But when he told Mrs. Murarji, she again said no. The Swami was not healthy and it would be too cold there. He might not be able to come back. She doubted whether he would able to accomplish so much there. People in America were not so cooperative and they would probably not listen to him. Expressing his ineffectiveness, Bhaktivedanta Swami demanded a personal interview. It was granted. A grey-haired, determined Bhaktivedanta Swami presented his emphatic request. Please give me one. Sumati Murarji was concerned. Swamiji, you're old. You are taking this responsibility. Do you think it is all right? No, he reassured her, lifting his hand to as if to reassure a doubting daughter. It is all right. But do you know what my secretaries think? They say Swamiji is going to die there. Bhaktivedanta made a face as if to dismiss a foolish rumor. Again he insisted that she give him a ticket. All right, she said. Get your P form and I will make an arrangement to send you by our ship. Bhaktivedanta Swami smiled brilliantly and happily left her office and passed her amazed and skeptical clerks. Now, can
For me, I think it's because I think my internet is too slow today.
Okay, yeah. You'll have to stop yours.
Yeah.